All right, it's time to update the ITSM guide. Now, if you're not familiar with the ITSM guide, first off, there's a link down in the description below. You can go download a copy of that. But a brief overview is that it's a guide to ITSM platforms, and I specifically picked the 13 vendors that were at Service Management World. Um, why those vendors? Because I had to limit it somehow. Um, so I picked those 13. Ultimately, and it ended up being 10 for a few different reasons. Basically, I was only able to truly evaluate 10 products exactly the way that I wanted to evaluate them. And I was evaluating them from the perspective of all of you coming from Sharewell. Sharewell is end of life at the end of 2026. So everybody who's using Sharewell right now has to move off of Sharewell onto another platform. And I figured, let's look at these 13, or it ended up being 10. Now, there were a couple that didn't get included. Those were ServiceNow, who wasn't at Service Management World, Avanti, who wasn't at Service Management World, BMC also wasn't at Service Management World. Um, and yes, they were excluded because they weren't at Service Management World, but they were also excluded because they're kind of the big players. Um, and especially coming from Sharewell, right? Avanti acquired Sharewell, and uh, in some cases, some organizations, uh, were already evaluating Avanti. So me evaluating Avanti wasn't necessarily providing any new information into that decision-making process. Now, it's at this point almost 6 months later. It is 6 months later, over 6 months later. Um, and we are 6 months closer to end of life for Sharewell. The mindset is changing from I'm leaving Sharewell, what do I go to? And shifting to I'm looking for my next ITSM platform. I'm not necessarily coming from Sharewell. I'm coming from whatever platform I'm already on. It might be ServiceNow. It might be Easy Vista. It might be uh, BMC, either Remedy, Helix, whatever it's called now, or even Footprints if you're coming from way far back in the, before times on BMC, um, or any other platform, right? So the role of the ITSM guide is going to change. In addition to that, there are a few things that, we're here 6 months later, things have changed. Some of those packages have new versions. Um, GLPI, for instance, is gearing up to release version 11, which is a significant change, significant improvement over GLPI 10. I almost can't look at the review that I did for GLPI in that ITSM guide and say that it's at all accurate anymore because GLPI 11 is so much different, so much better, in my opinion. Um, and it just needs a re-review, right? So for that reason, we need a new ITSM guide. There are also more ITSM vendors that are worth including there. I would like to review Avanti. I would like to review Neurons for that report. Not necessarily from the perspective of if you're coming from Sharewell, how will the experience feel, but even from the perspective of how how do I feel it performs as an ITSM platform. Now, that might be a little bit challenging for some of the platforms because it's been a while since I reviewed them. And I don't remember exactly what they looked like. And if I start asking different questions as I'm reviewing, will those questions be things that I specifically looked at in those platforms? I don't know. So I don't know exactly what the ITSM guide is going to look like. All I can say for sure is that absolutely there is going to be an updated version of the ITSM guide. Um, Now, I will also say some of the platforms that I wasn't able to review for the release at the beginning of this year, or I think it ended up getting released at the beginning of February. Um, I have been able to review since then, or I have been able to evaluate at least since then. And I would like to do some sort of write-up. So there might actually be a couple different updates to the ITSM guide. There might be one that keeps the existing uh, framework, the existing dimensions, the existing perspective of if you're moving from Sharewell, how do all of these platforms feel from that perspective? Um, just including some of the new platforms that I've been able to evaluate, and including some of the updated versions of the ones that I had already evaluated. Um, and then maybe later in the year, maybe around the November timeframe, again, another update that is specifically ITSM guide in general, no bearing on if you're coming from Sharewell. Um, but I'll have to figure out exactly how I want to frame uh, the dimensions, right? The Gartner Magic Quadrant obviously has, what is it? Completeness of vision and ability to execute. I might have the axes backwards, but I think those are the two primary axes that the Magic Quadrant uses across all of the different Gartner Magic Quadrants. Now, obviously, the Gartner Magic Quadrant for ITSM hasn't existed since 2020 or 2022, a while ago. Um, but that is an established pattern. I don't know if I really want to do that because I feel like it's too reductionist. It's too um, simplistic of a model. And I really want to highlight how the different platforms perform uh, for different purposes. For instance, if you're more interested in automation, you might prefer one type of platform. If you're more interested in data management and record keeping, you might be more interested in a different platform. So that might be an angle that I approach it from. If you have thoughts on this, if you have specific things that you're looking for from this sort of report, drop a comment down below. Uh, I'm really interested in making this report something that's useful for all of you, useful for the industry as a whole, um, and really highlights the things that you really want to see. The idea behind this report is that there are what, at least dozens, if not hundreds, probably not quite hundreds of ITSM platforms out there. There's no way that you're going to evaluate all of them, but I want to give you kind of an informed way to shortlist several that you might want to go spin off trials of, um, and talk to people about and do an evaluation of, because they're more likely to fit your needs than you know all of the others, right? So I want to make it useful. So if you have thoughts, opinions, curiosities, leave them down in the comments below. But keep an eye out for that updated ITSM guide. Certainly one coming soon with some sort of update to it, with the new information that I've seen since I last published it. But also keep keep an eye out for probably a new and improved style and framework of it coming later this year. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And let me know your thoughts on what you'd want to see in the new and improved ITSM guide. Thank you.